Hey, welcome to SBR Forum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. This is Into the Weekend with Bet DSI, the call we do every Thursday with Brent, the headlines manager at DSI Sportsbook, where he tells us a little bit about some of the betting action that he's seen so far for the upcoming major sporting events for the upcoming weekend. Right now, we're looking ahead to NFL Week 3 and college football Week 4. Brent, thanks so much for doing this very popular show with us once again this week.
It's a pleasure to be on, Peter.
All right, let's start with NFL Week 3. And the first thing I have to ask you about, right? Jacksonville, Seattle. What is it? 19, Seattle minus 19. I'm an inch away from going all in on Seattle minus 19. What kind of action do you get on like a line like that?
Well, generally speaking, a line that high, you don't get a ton of action, and that's kind of the case right here. The money has been coming in on Seattle. The count's about 3-1. The money's about 3-1, which isn't really crazy. I'm surprised that Sharp kind of got involved when the line was 17.5. He bought it down to 16.5. Not a typical buy, but that's what someone did. And this is a guy who's made a lot of money. The big money, of course, on Seattle is in the teasers, bringing them down to like 9.5, so they win by 10 and you're okay, and also down to 13, so if they win by 2 touchdowns, you're okay.
So then the public has been actually betting Seattle minus 19 or whatever, 19.5. They're like, Seattle's awesome, 19.5, sure, no problem.
Well, they are awesome, aren't they?
Yeah, but I'm surprised. So the public is biting at a line that big.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're sitting at 18.5, and again, the money's, it's not crazy money in terms of the dollar amount, just because it's more public involved than sharps. So when the sharps are involved, your chart gets out of hand really fast in terms of the money. The count can run off on Seattle without the money getting too far ahead, because generally the public will be betting smaller.
All right, and you said you did get a little bit of sharp action on Seattle, and that's, because I looked at the line movement in this, and, it kind of bounced back down to 16 or 17, then it bounced back up. It was a pretty quick movement, so I'm assuming that must have been at least some sharp action on Seattle, and you're saying you did see that.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising for us. We just don't, when you get a favorite over 14.5 points, you don't really expect to see sharps getting involved too much. But yeah, this guy did buy a half point on Seattle. It wasn't a huge bet, but this is a guy who's very sharp. And
then a similar game, Oakland at Denver, not quite as big of a line, but this line has actually climbed up, hasn't it? It opened at, I don't know, it opened at 14 or 14.5. Now I'm seeing 15.5, 16s. What kind of action have you gotten on that?
The count's probably, it's about 2-1 in favor of Denver, but sharps really haven't got involved at all in this game. Denver looks really strong. Oakland looks really bad. So again, this is another popular teaser game for guys out there, teasing Denver down to like around -4, -8.5. If they win by 9-10 points, you're covering all right. So Denver is another popular teaser side this week, but nothing in terms of sharp action on this game so far.
All right, so the public did take Denver, but the sharps have yet to come back on either Oakland or Jacksonville, even at those big numbers. Do you anticipate that might happen closer to kickoff, or do you think that the sharps just don't see value there?
They might be waiting for the Seattle game to get up to 19.5 again. Denver and Oakland, again, they might just be waiting to see if it's going to get driven up higher than the 15.5 where it is right now. I don't think that it will, and I think we're going to end up needing Oakland, but it's not going to be a huge chart, I don't believe.
Okay, so there you go. Some sharps did take Seattle, even at the inflated line, but they didn't like Denver at a slightly lower line. And then Tampa Bay at the Pats. I'm interested about this game because, the Pats obviously always a huge public team, especially when they're a big favorite. But now they're coming off of 2 major ATS losses where, they didn't even come close to covering. And I'm just wondering what kind of a reaction you've seen in terms of like public action. Is the public still betting them, or are they shying away from the game, or are they actually coming in on the underdog now?
Well, things have kind of evened out on this game. You expect that, we almost never need New England to win a game. But right now, we're not too bad at all. The count's very close. Our money's really close. We did have some money come in, like New England -6.5, laying 15. We also have people coming in on Tampa Bay, buying a half a point, getting the +7.5. So if this game lands 7, it probably won't be very good for us at all. But anything other than that is fine. Right now, we don't need a side either way in a big way. But the public is still teasing New England. I mean, they're basically saying New England's going to win, so I'll tease them down to to a pick 'em or whatever it is. So they have got involved that way heavily on New England, but there's no surprise there.
And then I did see one notable big move. I noticed you opened Cincinnati -1, then it took a big jump up to +2. What caused that? I'm assuming that was a huge, or maybe one or more big bets on Green Bay.
That was a really sharp bet on Green Bay getting the plus there. Green Bay plus the ones. We're up to 2.5 now. Our count is about 5-1 in favor of Green Bay. The money is about 5-6-1 in favor of Green Bay as well. So we're going to need the home dog now, Cincinnati. And the only kind of little bit of buyback we saw in Cincinnati was people buying it to +3. But we're sitting at 2.5 -15 or 2.5 -20 right now on Green Bay, hoping we can avoid sitting on 3. I do have sharp money on the total of this game. Actually, I'm surprised that the sharps bet that game over. It was over 46.5 where this really sharp guy came in, sitting at 48.5 right now. And of course, public is betting over. I got a sharp on the over, so we're definitely going to need the under in this game.
Wow. All right, so this sounds like it's a one-way action game for you. The sharps and the public liking both the over and Green Bay.
Yep, that's correct.
Right. All right, and then the final game specifically that I want to ask you about, Chicago at Pitt. Now, I've got Pitt, circled in my mind as an auto fade every week. I'm looking, how much do I want to fade them this week? I'm assuming that the rest of the public is feeling the same way as well. I'm assuming you're overwhelmed with action on Chicago at -2.
When you say the rest of the public, you're including yourself in that public group,
Definitely.
are you, Peter?
Yes.
You're now a public bettor and not a sharp?
I've always been a public bettor, Brent. Let's be honest. Come on.
Yeah, our count on Chicago is just out of control. It's like 8-1 there. The money's about 4-1, but there hasn't been anything really sharp coming back on Pittsburgh. It was interesting that the sharp money, or money that's kind of respected, was coming back a bit on Pittsburgh on the Monday night game, but that didn't pan out very well. So we had sharps on both sides of that Monday night game, and they're basically staying off Pittsburgh in this case.
Really? So you haven't had any sharps coming in on Chicago then?
Nothing. Oh, on Chicago, no, it's all public. Sharps are not involved in this game at all. It's just all public on Chicago. Practically nobody on Pittsburgh.
All right, and then looking down the rest of the card, a lot of very small lines, a lot of like 1-point favorites, 2-point favorites, home favorites, road favorites. What can you tell us about the notable action you've seen, public action, public sharp splits on sides or totals from the rest of the card?
Well, I've had sharp action on Washington. That game opened up. Washington was getting +1. Sharps come in, take the 1 on there. Washington now -1.5 point favorite. So that's a case where the money right now isn't too bad. It's slightly favoring Washington just because the sharp money is just obviously a higher dollar volume than the public money that came in. I've also got a big count on the over there, but that's basically just public money, the Detroit-Washington game. Lots of, anytime Detroit plays, public generally bet the over. When Detroit-Washington plays, it's like practically an automatic over no matter what the number is. We're sitting at 48.5 right there, and we're definitely going to be under there, I'm sure. So we have sharp money on Washington there, and Minnesota, which is a scary situation for us because we've got sharps and public over Minnesota just with the whole mess that's happening in Cleveland there. Sharps came in when it was Minnesota -5.5. They also made the money line on Minnesota as well. I've also got sharp money on the San Diego, Tennessee over. That's the total where they went over 43, sitting at 43.5 right now. And again, public generally bets the over. So anytime the public and the sharps are on and over, we definitely need the under. And this is a case where the count right now is probably about 5-1 in terms of the over San Diego and Tennessee game. So we're going to look for that Tennessee defense to show up and be strong. And one case where I do have a sharp public split there is the total with Tampa Bay and New England. I'm surprisingly have sharps going over, and the public, I guess, is just kind of going the opposite direction as they always used to go over with New England. They're all hitting the under now.
Wow. So you're saying the sharps you have a sharp public split on the total with New England with the public on the under, sharps on the over. That's just got to be the first time.
It's kind of strange. Like even when I was looking, I was like, is that right? But yeah, no, the sharps went over 43.5. The public was coming under 44.5 and under 44 where we are right now. But it's our money right now is about 5-1 on the over just because we've been drowned with public bets. 5-1 under, sorry, the count.
Okay, thanks so much, Brent. Now let's move on to college football week 4.